Welcome to the Screen Podcast. This is day 6 of our daily podcast from the Cannes Film Festival. I'm Matt Mueller, the editor-in-chief of Screen International and Screen Daily. I am your compere for today's episode in place of regular host Wendy Mitchell, who, of course, is irreplaceable, but is also a woman in demand and has a full day of other commitments today. So I will do my best to fill her very large shoes. I am coming to you today from Screen's Cannes Garden. Very exciting to be outside. You can hear the hubbub of Cannes going on behind us. The sun is shining. We are at day 6 of Cannes. Those all-important deals have started to trickle in. We're also approaching the halfway point of the festival, which means that, of course, some early favorites in the competition have started to rear their heads. And also films from other sections have started to bubble up to the surfaces as well. And to tell me about what is hitting the mark so far, and maybe a couple things that aren't hitting the mark so much for the critics, I am delighted to be joined today by Screen's senior U.S. critic, Tim Grierson. Tim, welcome back to the Screen Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Nice to be back, yeah.
How are your energy levels holding up, first of all, at this stage? That's the most important question.
They're holding up pretty well. I've been coming to the festival since 2013, and in that time, you sort of learn how to pace yourself, how to stay hydrated, when to get a nap when you can, to make sure you eat as well as you can. It's funny; those things are not glamorous. Those are not sexy things to talk about. But especially for a festival that's as long as Cannes, you really need to know it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I'm in pretty good spirits. We've also seen some pretty decent movies so far in the festival. You never know when the real gems will show up during the festival. And I feel like we've actually been pretty lucky that it's only day 6 and we've had some really good films and also some really good films to talk about.
Yeah, it's exciting so far, isn't it? Because I think we were looking at this the screen jury grid, which of course everyone checks first thing in the morning, and it was interesting to see that like 5 films in, there were already 2 films that had scored above 3, which were, one was Pavel Pawlikowski's Fatherland, and the other one was Ryosuke Hamaguchi's All of a Sudden. 2 films at the opposing ends of the spectrum in terms of runtime, with a crisp 82 minutes for Pavel's film and a 3-hour, 15-minute runtime for Hamaguchi's film. But both have been very warmly received by our jury critics. 3.3 score for Fatherland and 3.1 for All of a Sudden. So tell me, how have you seen both the films, and what's your take on what they're like?
Yeah, I've seen both. I'm a massive fan of both. I reviewed All of a Sudden for us and gave it 4 stars. And I also like Fatherland quite a lot. And they're really excellent films from filmmakers who have been in competition before and have won prizes in competition before. Pawlikowski won for Best Director for Cold War. Hamaguchi won Best Screenplay for Drive My Car. And I think going into the festival, those 2 films, Fatherland and All of a Sudden, were looked at sight unseen as potential Palme d'Or winners, and they've both delivered the goods, I would say. Fatherland is a very spare drama starring Sandra Huller as the daughter of Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann is played by Hans Zischler. They are returning to Germany in 1949. It's filmed in the Pawlikowski style recently of the old school aspect ratio, so it's a very tight 1:3:3 box. It's in black and white. It's a beautiful film. It's a very spare film. It's about an author returning to Germany, to a Germany that he doesn't recognize anymore, and a Germany that very much wants to welcome him back because he's been so successful in the U.S. that they are hoping that they will get some of the credit because he's simply German. And so it's very much a PR mission for Germany. He wants to go back. His daughter, played by Sandra Huller, has many more misgivings about it. And the film is essentially a road trip as they experience what Germany is like in 1949. Unfortunately, there are a lot of timely references in terms of what's going on in many different parts of the globe right now in terms of the rise and fall of fascism and the aftermath of that. Emotionally, it's very restrained until its ending, which is incredibly powerful. And then with All of a Sudden, the Hamaguchi film, it's very much like Drive My Car in that they're both 3-hour films. The new film, All of a Sudden, stars Virginie Efira and Tao Okamoto as 2 people who live in Paris. One is the director of a care facility for the elderly. The other is an experimental theater director from Japan. They meet in sort of a random occurrence and they form a fast friendship. But their friendship has a bit of a ticking clock to it because the theater director actually has terminal cancer. And so they're not going to have a long time to get to know one another. And all of a sudden is a beautiful film about sort of the act of conversation and what it's like when someone sort of unexpectedly comes into your life and changes your worldview sort of instantaneously. In some ways, it reminds me of the movies of Eric Romer or Richard Linklater in terms of just sitting back and enjoying two smart, thoughtful, curious people get to know one another and to engage in different ideas. I mean, this is a movie that talks about democracy, capitalism, elder care, the arts, the value of sort of bringing hope into people's lives and how we sustain people's lives either through the care that we give to people at the end of their life or through the art that we make. And are these things actually of value? It's a really incredible film. I've liked a lot of Hamaguchi's films, but I think All of a Sudden may be my favorite. And it's a really, I see both these films, Fatherland and All of a Sudden, in very different ways, speaking to something that feels very universal right now. I think Fatherland is talking about how you sort of pick up the pieces after a culture, after a society collapses. And All of a Sudden talks about something that sounds very cliched, which is what's the purpose of life? What's the value of a life? But because it's Hamaguchi and because his humanistic style is so restrained and elegant, it never feels melodramatic. It never feels treacly. Both films are tearjerkers, but they are such controlled tearjerkers that when the tears come, they're so earned. And so to have both of those films play so early in the festival, we still have a lot more competition films to go, but to have both of these already in our back pocket, it already feels like a very successful can.
Absolutely. Tim, those both sound magnificent. You've really kind of piqued my interest in seeing both of those as soon as possible. They both sound like really strong Palme d'Or contenders. I think with Sandra Huller, it's interesting, isn't it? She's coming off a Best Actress win at Berlin for Rose. So it'd be interesting. I've heard her performance, and this is great as well. It'd be interesting to see, can she achieve a twofer?
Yeah. I mean, it's really
Berlin and Best Actress wins.
Yeah, between Rose, Fatherland, perhaps a Best Supporting nomination for Project Hail Mary, and then Digger, which will come out in the fall if she's in the Inarritu movie. It definitely feels like she has three
The
really strong performances.
the year of Sandra. It feels like the year of
Yeah,
Sandra.
yeah.
It's incredible.
I mean, very much so. I mean, I think for most of our audience, they know who Sandra Huller is, but I feel like with Project Hail Mary being so commercially successful, I think a whole different audience got to experience her. I think she has a really real possibility of getting at least 2 Oscar nominations. It depends on how everything shakes out the rest of the year, but she's definitely made her case for why she's doing really impressive and really different work in the films that she's been in so far this year.
Yeah, for sure. Another actress who has been getting acclaim for her performance in one of the competition films is Léa Seydoux for Marie Kreutzer's Gentle Monster. But of course, Gentle Monster seems to be splitting the critics a bit more. I mean, I think it's scored under 2 on the jury grid. So very, very, very divisive for a lot of people. What have you seen it?
I have, and I am split myself. I think Léa Seydoux continues to do great and varied and interesting work. I think that she is a little bit hamstrung by a script that doesn't entirely know what to do with the character. For people who don't know, Gentle Monster is about a woman played by Seydoux who is a sort of a avant-garde concert pianist, and she's married to a filmmaker who's sort of struggling. They have a young son. They seem like they have a pretty decent life until They are living in Germany. The German police come to their home and confiscate all of his computers and software because they suspect him of either creating or at least obtaining and distributing child pornography. This is a complete shock to the Leah Seydoux character. She had no idea. And the movie is partly her coming to terms with, is this real? Are these accusations real? And if so, what does this mean about the man that she thought that she knew? The movie also spends a little time with the chief police officer, a woman who is investigating it, and also what her life is like. And I liked Corsage better, and I think Corsage was a more effective piece of drama. The real issue I have with Gentle Monster is that neither the husband nor the wife do I feel like we really get to know in any meaningful way. Now, with the husband, perhaps it's intentional. I think it is intentional. I think, what she's doing as a filmmaker is saying, if you learn this horrible thing about your spouse, about your partner, it's almost like they become a mystery to you. And so he is a mystery a bit in the film. But in some ways, the Leah Seydoux character is so enigmatic as well, but not enigmatic, I think, in a fascinating way. We don't see the layers to the character. We don't get the sense of a person who thought that she knew what her life was and then trying to pick up the pieces and make sense of it. I think Seydoux sort of does the best that she can with it, but the film feels almost too withholding. Usually, I like a film that makes you lean in and makes you wonder and want to figure out what's going on. But I think the mystery is so oblique in the film that it's actually sort of unsatisfying. And I don't feel like, in terms of this idea of, however you want to call it, problematic men, the idea of predatory men and how ubiquitous they are in our culture, even if we don't want to sort of acknowledge it. I don't think the movie really gets to the heart of that as sort of potently as I wish it did.
Yeah, Tim, I don't see anywhere near as many movies as you do, but I have seen Gentle Monster is my one film so far, and
Oh,
I would
yeah.
very much agree with your take on it, and also with our own review, which Wendy I did. And I think one of the struggles I thought for me was just trying to create a separate storyline with the policewoman character and her father, who's also a little bit, you know, predatory with his kind of care in the house, and it
Yes.
just never really successfully intertwines those two storylines. It doesn't really sort of know where it seems like it knows where to take the other one. So I thought it just detracted from what the sort of main story was a little bit.
That's how I felt too. It's supposed to be a dramatic irony that the police officer in her own home is facing a similar kind of moral complication. But it feels too tidy, it feels too convenient, and I also have to say that I'm sort of growing weary of the cop or the law enforcement person that we learn about this, like, complicating factor in their personal lives, which is supposed to make them more three-dimensional. It's starting to feel very cliched, and it feels very cliched, in this movie. Even the use of the Coldplay song, "Yellow,"
Yellow, yeah.
it feels a little bit like a dramatic irony that will come back in the movie. It feels much more forced than I felt like Corsage would. So yeah, so me, in terms of things that have played so far in the competition, it's one of the bigger disappointments for me.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's early days. There's still a lot more to come. It's exciting. We've already had these two amazing films. We are coming out on Sunday with our latest jury grid. I don't know the full scores for it, but I know that Hirokazu Korieda's Sheep in the Box is getting a few low scores. I don't know what the final score is going to be, but that sounds like that's also dividing people a little bit. So we'll see what the sort of final take is on that.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
also a little disappointed in that one, I
okay.
have to say. And I'm a Koreeda fan, and this one I feel is sort of a lesser film from Koreeda, which is a disappointment.
Okay.
Just to say really fast, it's about a couple in the near future who use AI to essentially create, or I guess rent, a replicant of their dead child and the complications that you might assume would happen if you did such a thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, we shall see how it lands with its final score. I can't say what that is at this stage. But Tim, tell me a little bit about being a critic for Screen in Cannes. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you obviously have to, as a veteran, you know how to sort of pace yourself. But I'm also curious when it comes to getting your assignments at the beginning of the festival. I mean, are you literally emailing our reviews editor Nikki Bond as soon as the lineup drops, saying which ones you want to review, or having long distance arm wrestling matches with Jonathan Romney about who gets to review the Hamaguchi? What goes on behind the scenes on the Screen Critics desk?
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Jonathan Romney, because I was remiss in not saying that Jonathan actually wrote our review for Fatherland, and it's great. Since we mentioned that Wendy did Gentle Monster, and I want to give Jonathan the shout out because his Fatherland review is terrific. Everybody is different in terms of on the Screen Reviews group, how we do it. It's funny, a few of us actually were hanging out last night and we were talking about how we do our wish lists. I send because the announcement come in waves. There's the first wave, and then you get Directors Fortnight and you get Critics Week, but then they add additional films to the competition or in certain regard or premieres, and so you almost have to wait maybe like a week or so to get the full scope. For instance, Paper Tiger was not part of the initial announcement. What I do, just speaking for myself, is I will look through all the different sections, and I'll usually send about 15 to 20 films. I don't in any way, shape, or form think that I'm going to be getting all of those. But for me, it does two things. Number one, it helps me clarify my own preferences in terms of the things I'm most looking forward to. It is sort of in a preferential order in which I send it to Nikki. And then also number two, for me, it kind of lets Nikki know these are the types of films I'm most interested in, and these are the ones that, to use the Hamaguchi, for example, if it's her deciding, does Tim want to do the Hamaguchi or the Iris Sachs, let's say, I have Hamaguchi a little bit higher on my list. So if she's wondering which of those two films is Tim most interested in, that can maybe help her. We have a huge, we have something like 9 critics on the ground here, and we're all seeing different things at different times, and then turning those reviews around almost immediately afterwards. And
it's an immense feat, isn't it? And she does an amazing job. It's true, because we are generally trying to review as much of the official selection as possible. I mean, every year we try to get, I think we get to at least 90%. And then, maybe not quite as much in the parallel sections, but we certainly aim to review a big chunk of that section. So yeah, we all know Nikki is doing a phenomenal job, but so are you as the entire team of critics. Every day is so exciting to sort of get the latest issue of Screen. I mean, I'm obviously reading all the reviews the night before because I'm proofing them, so
right.
I know what's going to come out. But at the same time, it's just such a thrill to read, all of your brilliant writers' takes on each of these competition films. So we will very much look forward to doing that for the rest of the festival. Tim, really great for you to come on today and talk us through a little bit of your highlights so far. We'll look forward to hearing more of your highlights along the way, and see if the Fatherland or all of a sudden high scores kind of hold their ground at the end and result in some prizes for those films. But enjoy the rest of the festival, and we'll catch up with you again very soon. Thank you for tuning in and listening to our Daily Screen podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow, and thank you to everyone on the Screen team who makes this podcast possible, not least our podcast producer Ellie Calnan and our digital editor Orlando Parfit. Hope the sun keeps shining, the rosé keeps flowing, and we'll see you again tomorrow.